In case you didn't notice, it's almost the end of the year, which means hardcore awards time again. And today's gonna get toasty, because we are going to talk about the worst albums of the year. For this countdown, I picked 6 of my least favorite albums of the year. Now, this list obviously includes just the albums that I've listened to. It doesn't include albums that I haven't. Why would it? I think it's really important to mention that all of what I'm about to say is strictly my opinion. It's strictly very, very subjective, my opinion, which you don't have to agree with. In fact, I want you to disagree with it, to challenge me in the comments saying why some of the albums that I have included were actually not that bad, or why some albums that I didn't include were much worse than the ones I did. Number 6, Human Target by Die Hard is Murder. I know. Hold your horses, let me explain. When this album came out, I didn't expect much from it. From the singles, I expected a very boring and bland deathcore album, and this is what I got. A very bland and boring deathcore album. Everything is very clear in comparison, so if you compare this album to an album of a very similar band in style and sound called Fit for an Autopsy, and you compare their album The Sea of Tragic Beasts to Human Target, you would see how much worse Human Target is in riffs, in choruses, in variety of sound, in breakdowns especially. Human Target just feels very bland. There's nothing extremely amazing about it. There's nothing extremely bad about it either. It's just boring. Some riffs are cool. Chemical Christ is one of my most favorite Die Hard riffs ever, but in general it's just not a great album. One important thing to point out is that this album is way above all of the other albums that I'm about to mention. The only reason I included this is because of context, because Die Hard is Murder is the biggest deathcore band, and they should put out the biggest deathcore albums of every single year they put out something. But they don't. There's at least 3 deathcore bands that I can think of off the top of my head that have put out a better deathcore album this year. So, unfortunately, Die Hard is Murder, Human Target, number 6. Wage War, Pressure. Wage War is a very standard metalcore band. They have their clean vocals, they have their scream vocals, they have their breakdowns. Nothing extremely special about Wage War. Their music is just tight. But Pressure was such a disappointment in a lot of ways that it just belongs on this list by default. Pressure is just a much weaker album than the ones they put out before. In terms of music, in terms of sound, in terms of style, in terms of lyrics, in terms of riffs, in terms of production. When you call something an evolution in sound, like a lot of Wage War fans would call this, I think you have to think about how can you improve the already existing sound, or how can you explore new sounds while incorporating your old style. And I think Wage War has failed in both of those. The new sound for Wage War is okay. It's like soft rock music with a bit of screaming every now and then. It's just kind of characterless in my opinion. For the most part, Pressure by Wage War was just a huge disappointment. A lot of people hated it. I don't hate it, but I think it's a big step down from what they've done before. But that's just how it is. Wage War, Pressure, number 5. Oh boy, this one's a throwback. Skillet, Victorious. I don't know if it was the case for you, but Skillet was my band back in the day of alternative rock music. I was listening to bands like 30 Seconds to Mars and Skillet. They became such radio-friendly music. It's actually just sad at this point. I mean, they never were really extremely edgy rock band in the first place. They were always pretty much like radio friendly, but this one is just boring. I didn't find any single good song on this record for myself. It's just so bland, it's just so pop, it's just sad, it's sad. So Skillet, Victorious, number 4. Another kind of legendary band in alternative rock slash punk music, P.R.O.X.Y, with the album called Who Do You Trust? This album is an embodiment of Steve Buscemi walking in a school hallway with a hat on backwards, saying hello to his fellow kids. That's exactly what this album sounds like. There's just so much electronics, there's just so much pop in this album that P.R.O.X.Y sound gets completely lost. There's no P.R.O.X.Y sound in this album. And once again, it's boring. It's just boring to listen to. It's characterless and it's boring. Putting out albums like this with zero depth, zero character is just kind of insulting almost to the fans. P.R.O.X.Y, Who Do You Trust? Number 3. This one's sad. This one's actually really, really sad. Being as an Ocean, P.R.O.X.Y, and Animo Story. The reason why I put this album above Skillet and Roach, which are obviously, in terms of music, are worse albums, in terms of everything, are worse albums. The reason why this is second worst album of the year is because of context. Being as an Ocean is a huge band in my world. I've listened to them a lot in past couple of years. They are my, I think, top 5 most listened to artists on Spotify. They have explored a lot of styles and genres before they got into P.R.O.X.Y. They've started off with melodic hardcore music, then they kind of branched their way into a more pop rock sound with a very, very interesting approach with When Waiting for the Morning to Come, which was an incredible and phenomenal album. There is no clear direction of what they wanted to do. There's pop songs, there's dad rock songs. It feels empty. This album feels empty. There's one song that I like of this album. And you know, the thing about it is that it's not a bad album because there's a lot of creativity put into it. A lot of creativity in terms of electronics, a lot of creative choices in terms of instrumentals. The vocals are great. The effects, the choice of effects sometimes is really good. But the problem with this album is that it's just so not anything. What I think this album lacks the most is the lyrical depth. It's just kind of infuriating, to be honest. And that's the reason why I put them so high on the list, even though it's technically not a bad album. And so that's why Being as an Ocean, P.R.O.X.Y, and Animo Story is my number 2. But obviously, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's top 2, who's top 3, who's top 4. It doesn't matter because we all know who's gonna be top, who's gonna be number 1 every single year they put out music. It's Attila, the villain. There is so many times I've given this band a chance. I've tried to listen to them. I was kind of excited after I heard 3-6, which was a song from like 2018, I think, or 2017. It was a pretty good song. It has a pretty cool breakdown. Then I listened to Pizza by Attila, which was a nice goofy song about pizza, which was actually pretty good as well. And then this came out, the album called Villain, in the beginning of the year. This album is like when you drop a sandwich on the floor. It's annoying. This album is just bad. I can't explain it. I understand you can make music for fun, but at least try to make it quality music. Not this. This is just garbage. This is trash. This is straight up trash. Like, I don't hate usually on bands like this, but Attila just straight up died with this album. I mean, they were dead. They were pretty dead before, but with this particular album, they're just non-existent anymore. It just makes me feel bad about myself for listening to it. It just makes me want to take a shower after every single second of this album. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other bands that I could have mentioned here, but I picked these 6 because these are the albums that I really listened to every single song, tried to understand what are they about, how they were written, and stuff. And that's why these 6 albums have ended up on this list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What is your worst album of the year? But for me, it's definitely Attila. There's no changing that. Thank you to my patrons, as usual, my tier 2 patrons, Josh Berg, the man himself, and Ibrahim Papataj, as well as every other patron in tier 1, as well as YouTube, because you guys are cool. Some could say you're all breathtaking. But this is gonna be it for the worst albums of the year. Thank you all for watching. Best albums of the year, best songs of the year coming at the end of this week. And then 2 more videos are coming after this, before 2019 ends. I'm not gonna spoil what those videos are going to be, but I'm just gonna tell you, you better subscribe. You better keep that bell icon on, because who knows? Maybe those videos are gonna be a bit challenging. See you in the next one. Bye.